The title tonight is Everyone is or can be an Agile coach. And I'll explain what I mean by that. But before I start, I was inspired by Ken holding up, mentioning the B word, the badass word. So when I was writing the book, I was trying to figure out the title, and I had picked this title, and I had sprinkled badass and badassery throughout the book. So I had a lot of references to it. And then I polled, I probably should have done this earlier. So there's someone in the group who's like a UX researcher. I probably should have done UX research first and see how will the world react to that word. And I sent out a poll to my, trusted, colleagues. And unfortunately, half the world came back and said they really liked the term badass, almost 50-50. And then half the world came back and said, I find it offensive, Robert, that it's, you need to figure out another term. So it froze me. I was like a deer in the headlights. I was frozen for a second. I'm like, what do I do now with the title? And it took me about 2 weeks to break the ice. And at one point, I was going to replace it with well-rounded. So that was my replacement, right? Extraordinarily well-rounded Agile coaching. That was sort of my, and it aligns with the wheel model that's in it. And then I had an epiphany, and I'm like, I really like this notion of badass in a positive way, which says we're always trying to get better. Like it's not something you achieve and then you're done, but we're always growing it, and we're endeavoring to become better and better. So I hope, so that's one way of saying, if you're offended by it, I apologize. I'm not going to change the title for you, but hopefully none of you are offended by that word. But I did poll the universe, and I did think deep thoughts about it. I'm not going to talk about myself. The agenda tonight, we're going to do an introduction, and I started that a little bit. We're going to talk about something called the Agile Coaching Growth Wheel, which is a nice definition of what Agile coaching is. I bet if you asked 50 Agile coaches on LinkedIn just randomly, you would get, and what is Agile coaching? You would get 50 different definitions of what it is. That sounds very Agile-y, but I think it's also a problem in that we don't have a clear definition. Now, some of them would probably come back with some commonality, but it would be, it's not everyone has a view of what it is. And so the Agile Coaching Growth Wheel is something, I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's a reference model for what good Agile coaching, what is it? What is it about? What are the attributes of it? The coaching mindset, we're going to talk about a little bit. What is the coaching mindset? We're going to talk about the arc of a coaching conversation a little bit. Lightly, like and think of it as a coaching conversation. And you all have them every day. You have conversations. I would liken them to coaching conversations. And sometimes you do them well, and sometimes you probably do them poorly, and you could improve. And you have peer-to-peer conversations. You have Scrum Master to team conversations. You might have upward coaching conversations, talking to a leader. Whether you're a coach or not, you're trying to influence people. You're trying to change mindsets. You're trying to teach people. You might be trying to mentor someone. So we're all doing it in a general way. So the coaching conversation, that arc, we'll talk about it, how to do it a little bit better or consistently. Then we're going to try a bit of practice. And I have a few scenarios, and then we'll land it. We'll land the ship, and we'll be done. You can ask questions along the way. I'm perfectly fine. Probably the best way to do it would be to put it in chat, and maybe Ken can arbitrate it and interrupt me. So when I say I want everyone here to tease apart, a lot of I heard in the room, folks were like, I'm not an Agile coach, or I am an Agile coach. I want to tease apart, and I think I did a poor job of this in the book, because I put Agile coach on the title. People think the book is for folks who have Agile coaching in their title. Does that resonate with everyone? That's the wrong thing. What I don't want you to be here and listen. If you're an Agile coach, you listen, and if you're not an Agile coach, you don't listen. I want to tease apart the role, the hierarchy, the job descriptions, the titles from the activities within coaching. Everyone with me? I don't care. I'm not trying to change your title. I'm trying to introduce you to coaching competencies and skills. And then I'm trying to influence you to use them in your job. Like, for example, in our room, Josephine talked about being in a UX team, and she was talking about doing user interviews or interviews. and she was saying something like, that's agile iterations are tough with that, sprints are tough with that, and that's true, because they don't fit into those boundaries. But so agile coaching might not fit in that, but the conversation model does, right? If you have conversations with clients, or if you have conversations with peers, or you try to influence people, and I'm not just picking on Josephine, it's anyone. So hopefully you can look at this in a generic way. So don't trigger on the words, the title, really trigger on the attributes, the skills. And I'm hoping to raise the bar on your skills. That's the point. So historical, yeah.
Yeah, we do have a question. Josephine's actually asking, I'm confused as to what is Agile about. What makes it Agile?
I don't have an answer. I'd put it out to the crowd. That's a very open. What makes the world round? I mean, right? It's a good question, but it's a very. So we can either narrow the question, or we can leverage the wisdom of the crowd here. Anyone? Yeah. What is Agile?
Josephine, do you want to play in and maybe give us a little clarification?
Yeah, the question was, what's Agile about the coaching topic? Like I'm familiar with coaching competencies and skills, but I'm trying to understand what
I'd suggest, Joseph.
What about this coaching concept that's being presented is Agile?
So what I'd suggest is maybe go along for the ride a little bit, and see if I start answering bits of that. And then maybe towards the end, you might have a more specific question, if that makes sense. So if I can invite you to go along just a bit for the ride, and then we'll see where we end up. And it's not a long ride, so we'll see how it goes. So everyone, the first definition of Agile coaching was done by two folks who really created the notion of Agile coaching, in my mind, co-creators of the term Agile coaching and the discipline of Agile coaching. There had been Agile coaching before 2010, but around 2009, 10, 11, Lisa Atkins and Michael Spade, they formed a company called the Agile Coaching Institute. They started doing training, and they created this thing called the Agile Coaching Competency Framework, which you see on the screen. Some people, I like to call it the X-wing model, if that makes sense to everyone. There's an X in the middle. I just refer to it often as that. And the way, and what they were trying to do is says this term of Agile coaching. So coaching teams, coaching organizations in Agile context, everyone with me. Agile context would be a Scrum environment, a safe environment, a Kanban environment, an extreme programming environment. And there might be someone who's coaching in these environments at scale, one team, many teams. Like what do they do? What is the job description? What is the boundary conditions? And that's what this is trying, in my mind, to try to define. Now there's 4 primary stances that they talked about, and you can see them here. They're in the peach colored. And they're at the side of the X-wing model. Teaching, so they talk about sometimes an Agile coach will be a teacher. Does that make sense to everyone? Sometimes you teach people things. Like I might, if I'm talking to a new Scrum team, I might talk to them about basic Scrum practices or tactics. Not forever. And it's not even, and I'm not talking about a certification class, everyone with me? I'm talking about maybe going to a whiteboard and explaining something for 5 minutes. So that's teaching stance. And I'll talk about them as competencies or stances or skills. I'll use those terms maybe interchangeably. Mentoring to me is very close to teaching. Whereas teaching, I might be teaching a group. Mentoring, I might be talking to Dave McKenna. And I often think of mentoring as being side by side showing Dave, like showing the way. When I think of mentoring someone, I think of going shoulder to shoulder. Or if you're think of an apprentice model, everyone, like a craftsman model, if you have a master carpenter and then an apprentice carpenter, there's a mentoring relationship there. They're working together, but the mentor is showing the way. And then asking the mentee to show them how to, all right, repeat that back to me. So those are 2 stances that a coach can take. And you probably all have done that in your careers, like at some point or another. There's two other stances: facilitation, facilitating meetings. If there's, I've heard, are there any Scrum Masters in the room? Everyone with me? So there's this notion that Scrum Masters are coaches. Anyone ever hear that? Or a Scrum Master has Agile coaching. I mean, I think of a Scrum Master as being an Agile coach in training, or a junior Agile coach, or a coach. They do that stuff. They do some of this X-Wing stuff. One of the things that's common for a Scrum Master to do is facilitate meetings, facilitate events, and to get better at it, retrospectives. So facilitation is a stance. And the fourth primary stance in the X-Wing model was professional coaching. And I think of that as asking questions. Everyone with me, not telling someone, not fixing Fernando's problem for him, but asking him questions so he discovers the answer for himself. Everyone understand what I'm saying? Asking powerful, open-ended questions so that Fernando can discover that for himself. So think of professional coaching as more open-ended or powerful questions, non-judgmental questions. Those are the four primary stances. Now, what they did in the X-Wing is there's two areas, top and bottom. The Agile Lean practitioner is how much domain chops you have in direct Agile skills. Everyone with me? Like, what's my Scrum knowledge? What's my Kanban knowledge? What's my SAFe knowledge? What's my general practice knowledge? Story writing, things like that. Agile Lean practitioner. I'm bringing those skills. There's no bar up there. There's no definition of what's good enough, but it's, I have to, if I'm coaching in an Agile context, I have to be able to spell it. Does that make sense to everyone? Right? At least spell some aspects of it. I don't have to necessarily be expert, because I'm helping other people discover their way. And then at the bottom, there's these three areas. We can't be expert in everything, but there's technical mastery, transformation mastery, like adoption, scaling, and then business mastery, product mastery. And you're probably not, as a coach, you're not good at all of them. Does that resonate with everyone? You're developing, you have areas of expertise. I actually don't think it's the right view to say, I need to be good at all of this stuff. I need to be perfect. I need to be a master at all of that. That you can have that view, but it's probably going to take you a while, and it may be a moving target for you. But that's the X-Wing model. So an Agile coach comes into work each day, and they leverage their Agile Lean experience and grow it. They leverage their technical mastery. And as they're coaching teams and individuals, they're picking the stances that they need to adopt in order to support their team, the people that they're coaching agenda. Does that resonate with everyone? Right, so the framework is sort of that job description that's coming in. You want to think about it that way. Or role description. Now, when I say you have interchangeable competencies, or I want you all to be Agile coaches, I'm not necessarily looking at the purple and the green. That's great, but I'm really concentrating on the orange or the salmon colored, right? The four primary stances. Like, I can be a developer on a team. Has anyone been a developer on a team, and have they taught someone something, like a peer? Yes. Has anyone ever paired with a developer on a team and mentored them? Yes. Has anyone ever facilitated a little design discussion amongst a group of, and I'm just picking on developers. It could be testers, it could be UX, it could be whatever roles you have. And yes, and has anyone ever coached another member of the team, I think, and asked them questions to solve, like, what did you try to do? How did you try to solve that problem? Why, what worked? What didn't work? You're now in coaching stance. So I just want to amplify it and focus you on that. All right. So fast forward to about 2018, somewhere between 2016 and 2018, some coaches got together in Europe. It was a Scrum Alliance sponsored event called a Scrum Coaches Retreat. It was an open space event. And one group of coaches got together and worked for like 3 days. And they wanted to raise the bar of the X-Wing model. They said, they were saying it's good. It's really good, but there's some missing things that they were noticing. There were some missing stances, and I'll talk about those missing, at least from their point of view, there were some missing stances that could be helpful to our clients. And there was also something called self-mastery that was missing. and it wasn't specifically called out in the X-Wing. You could inherently view it that way. And then there was, how do you grow? One of the questions the X-Wing model never addressed was, how do you mature? How do you grow as a coach? What is the guidance around growing in each of the competency areas? Like, how do I grow as a facilitator? What does that look like? What does it look like to become an entry level versus someone who's relatively competent at that? So the wheel is filling in some of it was an effort to fill in some of those balances. And I want to explore the Agile coaching growth wheel. So think of the Agile coaching competency model and the wheel as being an upgrade, if you will, but with all due respect, it's just extending some things. And I want to keep that. So here's some history. I'm not going to go into the history of the wheel. There's a nice blog post there that you can read about history. But the place I want to go first, and this is something that the Agile Coaching Competency Framework didn't do a good job, I think. Lisa's book did, but the model itself didn't do a good job of explaining that coaching is an inside job. Anyone ever hear the term leadership is if in order to be a good leader, you need to be a good follower? Anyone ever hear that terminology? Or in order to be a leader, you need to be able to lead yourself? I actually teach Agile leadership workshops, and I talk about leadership is an inside out job first. So don't talk to me about telling people what to do or to making people, I want you, Josephine or Bob K, I want you to be Agile. I'm leading you, be Agile, be Scrum, go do that now. Well, what I'm doing is I'm prescribing to them, but I'm not doing it myself. I'm not showing them. Everyone with me? I'm sort of outwardly facing leader. What I think is more effective is to be inwardly facing. Am I Agile myself? Am I walking my own talk before I start leading other people? And that's what self-mastery is with the wheel. It's reminding you that coaching, yes, there's outward competencies, but don't forget that you have to walk your own talk. So for example, continuous growth. Everyone with me? I think every Agile coach, they should be growing their team. Guess who else should be growing? Themselves. Darn it. I usually ask coaches, are you coaching? Yes. Do you have a coach? Does that resonate with everyone? Right? Do you have a coach? Do you have a mentor? Right? You should. There's no magic number, but under self-mastery, you got to be pretty full of yourself if you think, well, I don't need a coach, or I know everything, right? That's not the mindset that we want in self-mastery. So self-mastery is self-awareness, is ethics, is emotional intelligence. It's having that mindfulness, being very mindful, calm, being aware of yourself, being very self-aware, being service-oriented, having a bit of humility, realizing it's not, and I don't mean saying I'm humble. I could easily say I'm humble to Thomas or to Larry, but do I act that way? Am I egoless in my actions? That's the point. Am I growing? Am I truly adopting that servant leadership mindset or that egolessness, right? Not that I have zero ego, but it's not about Bob Galen. It's about my client. It's about serving my organizations as a coach. My success is tied to their success. And I believe it. I don't just say it, I believe it. That's part of that self-mastery. Am I coachable? So there's one thing to have a coach. I'll pick on Dave McKenna. I'm kidding, Dave. But you can have a coach, but are you coachable? Right? Everyone like I can have a coach, but my coach is like charging me big bucks because I'm obnoxious and I'm full of myself and and it's not worthwhile for them to coach me. So there's no good relationship there. So I need to be coachable. Am I really curious about myself and am I growing myself? And then my coaching presence. How am I showing up in the moment? Everyone with me? Am I showing up at a coaching event and am I worried about my golf trip or my paycheck? Or am I fully present for the client? Everyone, Josephine, am I fully present? One of the things from self-mastery is showing up and you're not checking your phone. You're not checking your email. I am fully there for Fernando and he can sense it. I'm not telling him that, but he can sense it because I'm listening. I'm curious and I'm engaged. So self-mastery, that is the foundation for everything. So think about that. While I mess around with my keyboard. So the stances change a little bit in the Agile Coaching Growth Wheel from the X-Wing model. So I'll talk about, so Facilitation stays the same, just the way I described it. Teaching and mentoring is combined into guiding learning. Everyone with me? So there was a decision made to take those two things, but not change them conceptually, but put them into one stance. I'm either mentoring or I'm teaching. Whether you like it or not, it's really not changing this, it's just aggregating it. So they're the same. Coaching is exactly the same, professional coaching. Remember I said, how is that characterized? Someone help me. By asking what? Questions, open-ended,
Questions.
powerful questions, and helping your client. And when I say client, as a coach, it could be an individual or a team or a group. Everyone would. So when I use the term client, it's whoever I'm coaching, one or many or a group. So I'm coaching, I'm asking questions, I'm helping my client discover their way. And it's helping them do that. And then they added two additional stances that I thought were missing from the Agile coaching competency model. One is advising, actually not asking someone a question, but providing advice or consulting. Everyone with me? Occasionally stepping out and saying, I really think you should do this, and this is why. Providing advice depending on the client's agenda. And one of the things in the Agile coaching competency framework is, since advising wasn't there, coaches felt like they didn't have permission to consult. Does that resonate with anyone? They could never provide advice, ever. You're not an Agile coach if you provide one bit of advice. And I don't think I think you need that stance occasionally, depending on the client and their agenda. Typically, if you're coaching up, does anyone coach leaders here or deal with leadership in any way? I think providing advice is a useful stance for leaders occasionally. And I think if you just ask them questions, you might get shown the door. I call it death by 1,000 questions sometimes, all right? I'm just kidding, but you can ask way too many questions and they want you to help them. So it gives you permission for that. And then the other stance that the wheel added was leading. Does that make sense to everyone? And leading in this case is role modeling. It says that as a coach, you are a leader. You may not be an organizational leader, but people are watching what you do. They're watching, if you're a transformation coach, they're paying attention to, is Larry walking his talk? He talks about psychological safety, but he marginalizes half the people in the room. Right? Oh, is that the right? Oh, that's how you do psychological safety. You marginalize half the people in the room. Well, that's what Larry's doing. No, that's not. Right. So we need to be accountable for our role model. We need to be accountable as coaches for walking our talk. Sometimes we need to go first. Anyone ever hear that term, leaders go first? In Agile transformations, we want leaders to go first or lead or set the example. I would actually argue that sometimes the coach should go first, maybe even before the leader, just a little bit. Again, it's a stance. You're not there 100% of the time, but we're giving you the permission. So those are some additional stances that we have. Now, part of the coach is to figure out, given my client interaction, what stance is most appropriate to serve my client. Everyone with me, right? You have to pick. You're not picking which one you're comfortable with. You're not picking which one you like. You can. You're serving, your client has an agenda. You serve your client and you sense and respond and say, okay, given my client's agenda, how do I need to show up to serve their agenda? And you may dance. I have this metaphor of you dance from stance to stance. Everyone with me? I might ask in a coaching session, I might ask a few questions. And then if I find that they don't understand what Scrum is, then I might switch into, Fran, what stance would I switch into? They don't have a clue about a Scrum stand-up. What's the intent? I would switch into teaching stance. You with me? I might teach them about the intent of the stand-up. If it's a Scrum Master group, I might show them a little bit. I might role model what stand-up dynamics, what does it look like to facilitate that? And then I might go back to asking a question. I froze there. That's not good. Now I'm back. And ask a question to see how my teaching landed. Did everyone see how I just danced around a few stances right then? Right? I danced around a few stances with my client. Not Not that hard. It's not that hard. So then the wheel also has Agile Lean Practitioner, it has service, and it has transformation. So there's some commonality with, again, the Agile Coaching Competency Framework. The other thing that the wheel did, and I talked about this earlier, is it defines 5 levels of maturity or skill or experience per competency. Everyone with me? So it doesn't want to grade you. It doesn't want to judge you. It just wants to give you some guidance of, if you're a beginner facilitator, this is what it might look like. If you're a practitioner facilitator, this is what you might be capable of. And this is what that journey looks like. So for each competency of the primary competencies, it has 5: beginner, advanced beginner, practitioner, guide, and catalyst. And it's just providing you that sort of observational guidance of what would it look like if I was operating at that level. I don't know why I'm freezing the way I am. Is everyone seeing me freeze, or is it just me?
Yeah, you have frozen, but I can still hear you.
Okay, so that makes me feel better. Thank you, Ken. All right.
Yep.
All right. So that's it for the wheel. Any questions around the wheel? So Agile Coaching Competency Framework in the wheel. It's just a model. It's a framework to think. It's a thinking tool. Questions, clarifications.
Yeah, feel free to unmute yourself or simply put your questions in the chat.
Bob, I have a question.
Sure, Larry, go ahead.
Sure, thanks. This is great. I'm not going to be able to be here the whole time, but I appreciate it. And maybe question, maybe others might have you seen others who offer their own, so to speak, competency scores as part of describing the services they offer? I'm a coach. I'm at this level of this level of this, and that level of that.
So one of the good question. One of the intentions of the wheel is that it's a personal growth tool, Larry. So
Yep.
a lot of the folks who are influencing the wheel, myself, Mark Summers, the Scrum Alliance, we're trying to, Joel, a few folks were out there talking about it. We try to emphasize that it's not intended for organizational measurement, organizational Agile coach measurement. I mean, you can clearly do that. It's not intended to be weaponized. It's not intended to reward or not reward, etc. You could use it that way. The real intent of the wheel is for every coach under self-mastery to grow themselves.
Sure.
Now,
we use UX maturity in similar way. Excuse me for
yeah. Now, if there's a coaching team, a coaching community of practice, I would encourage them to evaluate themselves. There are assessment tools, everyone. There's an assessment tool on the Scrum Alliance site, and there's another assessment tool as part of Comparative Agility. They're free. They're both free. They're both private. And I would suggest the coaching team each individually assess themselves. And if they feel safe, then share their data, Larry. And what would be very cool about that is you could not only look at the competency of each individual coach, but you look at sweet spots of what are our weaknesses as a team. Oh, we have incredible strength in facilitation and professional coaching, but we don't have a lot of advisory experience. And how do we grow that? That's the intent, is the safety side of the intent. Go ahead.
And this would be another thing that a coach could model, is that they are self-aware about their competency, and that it's part of how they grow.
Well, wouldn't it be cool, Larry? Imagine you and I are pairing, and we use this as a model, and you've evaluated it and I've evaluated, and I'm strong in professional coaching. Let's hypothetically say that. I may or may not be. And you're looking to grow in that area. And you're like, Bob, can I grow with you? Because I'm literally, I'm at this level in professional coaching, and I want to pair with you and join you in your coaching a little bit so I can strengthen that. I think that would be a wonderful conversation to have. And then vice versa. Larry, you have strength in facilitation, and I pair with you, and we're sort of using it as a conversation device. Yep. Right? It's not about measuring people in a negative way, but it's about growing growing individuals and growing any team.
Right. Half seriously, I'm imagining I, as a coach, want to X because of Y. to use this user stories and text.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, everyone. Any other questions? Coaching mindset. That's good. Now we're switching gears a little bit. I want you to get in mindset and remember conversations are coming up. I'm trying to set this stage because I want to force you to do some coaching. Whether you know what it is or not, or whether you like it or not, we're going to give you a chance to practice a little bit. So the mindset, I just love this quote from Kobe Bryant. It's the magic within each of us that gives us the potential to inspire the world. I think part of coaching is to bring this out of our clients, if that makes sense to everyone, right? The magic, there's magic out there. What can we do to bring it out? And sometimes questions doesn't do that. Sometimes telling a client to try something, they have no confidence. So again, it's not a one stance. One of the problems with the competency frameworks is I noticed a lot of coaches became, anyone ever hear that? What is that metaphor? If the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Anyone ever hear that sort of metaphor? I saw and see a lot of coaches, and they gravitate to one stance. Whether their client needs it or not, they're going to give them, that's the stance. And I think that's ineffective. I mean, the stance can be effective, but not all the time. So as a coach, we want to be nimble and sense from our client, what do they need from us? How do they need us to behave and switch and pivot and change in order to serve them? So some prime directives in mindset. First prime directive is do no harm. Never harm the client. Everyone with me? So even if I'm telling them what to do, I have to be careful that I don't get them fired, or I don't get them ostracized from the organization, or some. Do no harm. Another one, I want you all, I wish the world had more assumption of positive intent. I want you all to put a tattoo on your left wrist in your groups and all of your cultural settings and say, assume positive intent. With your leaders, like a leader comes down to you and frustrates you, assume positive intent before you, that just as a baseline for all interactions. Hold your clients as capable. It goes back to them solving their own problems more times than not. Establish, I said this several times, hold the client's agenda, not yours. Everyone with, how many of you have coached someone or had a conversation with someone and you were trying to convince them to do something that you wanted them to do? You were trying to twist it and having them meet your agenda. Anyone go in and I need to make this team agile. I need to turn this team into a scrum team, right? I was told to do it. Well, that's not respecting the client's agenda. I mean, you can do that. So it's not about our agenda. There's this notion of meeting the client where they are, not where we want them to be. Everyone with me? That is another way to say that. Stop meeting them where you want them to be, right? You can be frustrated with it. You can have that view, but you have to understand where they are and what is their agenda. And then have the courage to be patient, meet them where they are and guide them. This is what I was talking about. Meet them where they are. You have to meet people where they are, and sometimes you have to leave them there. Sometimes part of coaching is not coaching. Like if someone's not ready to be coached, maybe you need to give them a day or an hour or a weekend or something, instead of like hammering on their head and saying, you will be scrum. You're not going to make much progress that way. So have empathy. Now, part of meeting them where they are is you have to understand where they are. Everyone understand what I'm saying? Where are they? Right? What do they want? So this is where coaching stance can be incredibly powerful. Ask some questions. Have some curiosity. True curiosity, not fake curiosity. Fernando tell me what keeps you up at night. I mean, that's in the form of curiosity, and I'm sort of curious, but it's sort of a canned question. And Fernando's like, he's not really, what, Bob's just spoon feeding me. Fernando, right? You've been here 10 years. What are you really struggling with? And I'm leaning in. Everyone with me? I'm leaning in. I'm making eye contact. I'm really curious. And he takes a breath and I'm like, ooh, something really smart is going to come out of his mouth. I can feel it. Don't say anything, Fernando. Don't disappoint me. So I'm kidding around, but it's that curiosity. So seek to understand where they are. Build your empathy, build some relationship before you do some coaching.
Bob, we have a hand raised. Dave, you had a question?
Oh, Dave, I missed your hand. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah.
No worries. So this is alluding to what you were just talking about. So you could have a team that you're a Scrum Master for where they don't want to do Scrum, but meanwhile, your corporate leadership or your organizational leadership wants everybody to do Scrum. So, you're trying to do the best you can, but you have, people on the Scrum team, like mostly the developers, they've been doing waterfall for a long time, and they just want to basically they want it to be the Wild West and just get their work done. They don't want to they want to avoid the Scrum part of it. And but meanwhile, you have to report out metrics. You have to talk to your leadership about how the Scrum part of it is going. So that seems to be one of the biggest sort of conflicts that I see anywhere I go.
I mean, I see it all the time. And I see it at all levels, not just at the Scrum Master level, Dave. And you as a coach, I'm going to declare you a coach. Remember, it's not about title. So you are also an Agile coach. As a coach, you have to make that decision. You have an external agenda which says convert everyone to Scrum. You with me? Right? I want everyone, and you have 2 days to do it, Dave. Right? Because I need to move you to another team. And I'm the leader, and I've decided we're all going to do this. So, and you're the Scrum Master, so you can make magic happen. And then there's this group of folks that are being prescribed to, and of course they're going to be resistant because we're telling them we didn't even ask them we didn't ask them anything, right? I mean, I don't know what you did, Dave, but the leadership team didn't.
I'm actually an Agile coach, and I'm also a Scrum Master.
That's fine. But again, I'm not trying to get into your. What?
But the big thing that I'm looking at is the fact that it's this is one of the biggest conflicts that I've seen, and a lot of times the leadership, they want you to do this conversion as quickly as possible. But what I've learned is that to get the teams to do Scrum, you can do it, but it takes a considerable amount of time, usually minimum of 6 months, maybe up to a year, depending on how bad the resistance is. But it's not something you can do with them in a month. Is it possible? Yeah, it's possible. But the problem is there's always resistance.
So I think you have to balance that. I would argue too, Dave, and I don't want to get too much into your scenario, but I'm connecting to it. I've seen it all the time. I've encountered it. Once you leave, will it even be sticky? So one of the problems is there's doing Scrum. They're going through the motions, and you can report metrics. And then once you leave, will they actually do it because their mindset has changed because they want to? And I call that stickiness. So to me, a coach's job is to create a sticky environment as well. So when you're stuck in this position where you have to coach leaders, you with me? It's not just a team. You're in a position where you're coaching up. You may have to coach your peers because some of them may be inconsistently coaching. And then you have to coach teams. And part of that is prescribing, and part of that is giving them space and meeting them where they are. Like you have a choice. Am I going to really push into the teams, or am I really going to push into leadership? Am I going to balance between that? But your goal is to transform the organization. You with me? And, or whatever that is to change. I want to adopt the mindset in this organization. So it's not just team centric. It's not just peer level centric, and it's not just leadership centric. It's all of those. And striking that balancing act is incredibly challenging. But what I'm suggesting is, in order to create a sticky environment, sometimes just giving the team space is the right thing, and maybe having a hard conversation with leaders to say, you know what, I need 6 months, so get off my back. I'm just kidding around a little bit, but get off. You need to give me space because there's a lot of resistance at a team level. And in order for me to effectively go through that, we need to be patient, and we need to work through it. I need to build relationships and trust with the team. I need to meet them where they are. And that's a hard conversation on the other side to get that space. So yes, I think it's in this area. There's no magic silver bullets, but a lot of coaches don't. What I see in a lot of coaches is they go teamward because it's the easiest path. They take all of their energy and they focus it down to the teams because it's probably the least risky. It's still challenging, and they're avoiding that sort of the coaching on the other side of the organization. So if it helps, walk in their shoes. Empathy. Walk in your team's shoes. I hate it when I hear someone says, oh, I was a developer 2 years ago, so I know what it's like to be a developer on this team. No, you don't, right? You're an agent. I'm a dinosaur. I used to write code 20, 30 years ago, right? Oh, yes, I can write code. I know. No, I don't know what that's like. I don't know what it's like in this team. I don't know what it's like in this company. So I need to shut up and meet everyone where they are and try to walk in their shoes a little bit before I coach them. That's what I mean by building empathy. Anyone here ever gets frustrated with leaders? We could go agile if only those pointy-headed leaders converted themselves to agile. Guess what? Walk in their shoes. They may be getting pressure themselves, for goodness sakes. They may be getting measured with traditional metrics, and that's what's driving their behavior. So before we marginalize them and stereotype them, meet them where they are. Meet them with respect, meet them with empathy, and try to build a relationship there. So my thing is, I think as coaches, before we coach, again, self-mastery, let's walk in their shoes a little bit. We all have baggage. Everyone with me. We all have baggage and biases. In coaching, you want to bring it. I have like 25 years of Agile coaching experience and Agile experience. That's good. You know what's bad about it? I have baggage up the wazoo. And if I don't manage that, I bring all of this other, oh, at this company, they did, this is why that was happening. So I'm going to project that bias onto this team. And it's irrelevant, right? I'm not even listening. I'm not even observing. So you want to leave your biases at the door. If you're coaching 3 teams, guess what? You're coaching 3 separate teams, right? Figure out those 3 separate teams. There may be some commonality, but find that out later. So leave your biases, really go through and be careful about that. And then walk your talk. The most powerful, so this goes back to Dave, when you're coaching a team, everyone would be, if a team is resisting you, I can push Agile on them, or I can show them what Agile looks like. Or I can show them what Scrum looks like. I can show them what congruent leadership looks like. I think it's my most powerful coaching stance is the role model that I bring. Everyone with me? What I do is my most powerful stance, because everything else I'm talking, everyone know that words are cheap. Behavior trumps words, right? I can say manage your WIP limit. Anyone ever work with an Agile coach and they hammer you on WIP limits, like you're supposed to have a reduced WIP limit, and you look at the coach and guess how many teams they have in flight? 28. And they're not taking a break. And they're talking about self-care, and they're overworking themselves. They have triple booked meetings. Everyone with me, right? What are they walking their talk? No. So start with, you want to coach someone? Coach yourself. Control how you're showing up. Show people what an Agile mindset looks like. Show them what it looks like. Show them what courage looks like. In Dave's case, part of that courage might be show the team that you're willing, not Dave, I'm not talking about you personally, Dave. I'm saying in general, show the team that you have the courage to coach up. Everyone with me? Coach up, even though it's risky. I'm going to coach up. Why? Because that's where the impediment is. And I'm going to support that with the team. Maybe I'm going to do a balanced view there. So again, walk our talk. Don't just talk it. Very powerful. Any questions on mindset? Did you get it? That was a little bit of a taster on coaching mindset. I actually think that's a general sense. If we're employees in companies, that's probably a healthy set of ways we should show up in our teams. Reactions, questions?
We had
Go ahead.
clarification. We had clarification on what is a WIP limit. So for those who are not familiar with it, it's work in process or work in progress. Yep.
So how many things am I juggling? And I typically juggle too many things. So I talk a good game. I'm not perfect. So I talk a good game about this Agile coaching stuff, but it's hard for me to walk my talk. I'm working on walking my talk better. And when I show people that I'm willing to walk my talk, that says that it's a valuable practice. I don't have to say anything about it. All right, coaching conversations, real quick. I want to set this up and then get to some practice. There's an arc. I want you to think in terms of an arc. And it's just a conversation arc. There's no, voodoo or, sort of science here. It's just a opening moves. It's a 3-part conversational arc that you can use in giving feedback. You can use it in coaching conversations. You can use it in any team-based conversation. You sort of plan your arc a little bit in your head. The first part is opening moves. I like a chess metaphor. So opening moves, middle game, end game. Opening moves are the start, asking some open-ended questions. Introduce, hey, Fernando, how's your day going? Larry, how's the family? How's the horse? Right? You know, you had 5 horses and I thought they were, you know, you were gonna have 10. You were gonna buy 5. How did that work out or whatever? So you're asking questions, you're establishing. Now for a coaching conversation, you would ask permission to coach. Everyone repeat after me. The first question you ask is, can I coach you? Is now a good time? So ask permission. And if they say no, what do? Take the no, and maybe ask for a better time. So ask permission, establish goals. What's the agenda? What can I help you with? What are your challenges? Maybe the first conversation is more exploratory. We're just figuring it out. I'm just getting to know the client. Open-ended questions, listening. So part of open-ended questions, if you don't listen effectively and powerfully, you miss half the power of the question. So if you ask an open-ended question, you have to do something magical. You have to shut up and you have to listen on all channels, like get your radar. Listen to the body language. Listen to the tone. Listen to the emotional field. Really listen to what's going on. And then get your direction. The middle game is sort of the meat and potatoes of the coaching session. That's, you're looking at options, you're exploring things, and then you're trying to narrow it down. You're keeping, as a coach, you're keeping the agenda in mind, right? What's the agenda? And the agenda has an outcome that we're trying to narrow towards. You may ask some clarifying questions. You may switch stances. Everyone repeat after, switch stances. You could enter in coaching stance. The middle game might be a place where you switch to another stance or two. End game, you're trying to close this sucker down. Closure, ownership, follow-on actions. What are you going to do next? Would you like to schedule another session if we're not done? How do we do that? What are your action plans? What can I do? Yeah, one of the things I like about Endgame, ask how the coaching resonated with your client. Get some feedback for yourself right then and there. How did this land? Right? What could I do? Here's a magical question. What could I do to get better the next time? To serve you? Woo, there's a question, right? And it's talking about that. So that's the arc. Now, I just wanted to give you all some questions. You can screenshot this if you want. For now, I'll make sure you get these slides later. But one of the problems with powerful questions, if you study them in professional coaching, is there's literally hundreds, if not thousands of them. So I've seen coaches freeze when they're in coaching stance, because they're trying to select the perfect powerful question, and it's like taking 30 seconds, like, do I want this one, or do I want this one, or do I want this one? And by that time, they've lost their client, or potentially lost their client. So I'm boiling it down to what I found is these 7 questions are incredibly useful, and there's only 7. So they're easy to remember, and they're from the coaching habit. So what's on your mind? Everyone with me, opening moves. You can use it anytime, but it's a wonderful opening moves question. And what else? Oh, that's the little drill down question. Oh, okay, you'd like to explore this. Is there anything else? And what else? It's a peeling the onion question. What's the real challenge here for you? That could be middle game. Everyone see that? Now we're drilling into the middle game. And what else? Now I can use that question again. Powerful question. In opening moves, middle game, and I think end game, but mostly opening moves and middle game. So what do you want? Everyone with me? It's placing the emphasis on who? The client. Not what do I want you to do. Everyone notice that. This is what I want you to do. No. What do you want? What can I do? And then the next one, another powerful, how can I help? Because now we're talking about co-creation. Everyone with me? Very often I use that in the middle game. You want to be careful that you don't over-own accountability as a coach. As a coach, who owns the outcomes? Client or coach? Someone answer. Client, coach, client, coach.
Client.
Client. Dave is right. So as a coach, you can help, but you want to be careful that you don't stick in there too much. And it depends on the stance sometimes. When I'm in advisory stance, I talk about having some skin in the game with the client. So I might be a little close, but still the client owns the outcome. I love number 6. If you're saying this is sort of the drill down and the priority question. If you're saying yes to this, what are you saying no to? I just love the simplicity of that question. Right? And that I need to ask that of myself more often so I reduce my whip limit. Everyone with me? I don't ask that question to myself, and I should. And then what was most useful to you? End game. Very right. And this is me asking it of the client. So I'm just giving you some question guidance. And then as part of questions, what's the second most important part of asking open-ended questions? Marla, you can ask the questions, but then you have to do what? Listen. Thank you, Marla. I heard you. Even though you were muted. You shouted. It was open. We have to actively listen. And I can't emphasize this enough. And everyone, you have to be tolerant of silence. Everyone with me, right? You can ask it. You have to let the questions land. Sometimes you have to let silence do its job. So here's what I want to do. I want to do a time check first. How am I doing? 6:30. I'm not doing too bad. Am I, Ken? I need about 15 more minutes. Can I have 15 more minutes?
You can have theoretically another 45, although you may want to give a break if you want to go that long. So we usually
No. I want to do like
until 8:30 or 7:30 your time, I guess.
I think
Yeah.
I'm going to shoot for like 8-ish. Okay. So everyone, here's what I want you to do. I want you to grab some old school materials. So there's something called paper and pencil, or pen. Everyone with me. I want you to grab a piece of paper or a tablet or a journal and a writing device. You can do it electronically if you have to, but I'd prefer it was old school. Dave, you could even do it on the ceiling because you could have. I just love your ceiling. I know. Yeah, I love your ceiling. So I want you to grab it and I want you to draw an arc. Everyone with me. So opening moves, middle game, and end game. And what I want you to do is for the scenario I'm going to show you, I want you to jot down some notes to create a coaching game plan and talk about, well, how am I going to enter the conversation? So given this scenario, I have to coach someone, but I'm prepping. I'm using this arc to prep. What would be my opening moves? Given everything I've said so far, Agile coaching growth wheel, competency framework, mindset, switching stances, listening skills, open-ended questions, the arc, all of that stuff, you have a coaching scenario. And I want you to put some cheat sheet notes along the arc because you're going to coach this scenario 5 minutes after you're done. So you're just putting some notes there. And what we're going to do is I'm going to debrief and see what different strategies people came up with. So here's the first scenario. You're an Agile coach. So I've just promoted all of you or demoted you. Doesn't matter, right? You are all an Agile coach who is trying to spearhead an Agile transformation, whatever that means. You're trying to change an organization. You continuously try to make the methods versus mindset point, but it doesn't land very well. Everyone with me, right? You're talking about methods versus mindset. Another way of saying it is doing Agile versus being Agile. That's what this is saying. The COO of the organization who supports the initiative asks you to, 1, help explain what Agile is, 2, what it isn't, and 3, what is the value impact proposition? So they literally stop you in a hallway and ask you for a coaching session to address those 3 things. So what does your arc look like? Everyone with me. You have to construct an arc, opening moves, middle game, end game. I want to give you a few minutes to populate your arc and then we'll debrief. Oh, there's no right or wrong here. I don't care if you're a coach or not. Just guess. What's interesting to me is the variations on the arcs. I always get a lot of variation, wonderful variation on the arc. So just think about that scenario and sprinkle some conversation hints. How would you enter the conversation? How would you land to some of those agenda points? What stances would you use? What stances would you not use? Got about a minute left. So don't just starve. So populate the whole arc. Everyone with me? Don't just stay on opening moves. Sort of put some ideas, opening moves, put some ideas in the middle game. One of the important points, don't starve the end game. Like, how do you want it to land? What would be an important outcome from a coach perspective? You may not share with the client, but how would you like to land it? Oh, I should have put this up here. Sorry, everyone. That might be helpful. All right, who would like to share anything? So this is the strategy section. I'll take anything, any comments you made about your arcs. Anyone? Dave?
Okay, I'll share. So first
But
off,
I don't know. I don't want to prescribe. It looked like you came off mute, but
yeah,
are you?
yeah, I did.
Are you? Go
I'm
ahead.
ready. I'm good. Okay, so just an executive, but still ask him if he's okay if we do a coaching session, a quick coaching session here, right? Get his buy-in that we're going to do this, because he might just say, no, I don't have time and walk away, because they're executives. They're very short attention spans and very short time windows, right?
Yep, love that.
So, I'll ask him, basically start off with, okay, what have you heard about Agile? And have him tell me what he thinks Agile is. And then, do you think that's true? Kind of get him to talk about, what he's heard and what he thinks and what's going on. And I'll use that to kind of dive into the next part. If he really doesn't know Agile that much, or he just has a little Agile knowledge, it's a game I like to play, and Ken knows this. It's called Agile in 10 minutes, right? Show me Agile. And let's draw up the Scrum machine and do the whole thing, and show me what you think Scrum is, right? And then, we go through that, and I'll either do it full, kind of teach him or advise him, depending on how much he knows or doesn't know. Then I'll ask him, what are your questions when we're done? And then kind of like, do you want to go deeper? Do you want to learn more about Agile? Because if so, we can set up some time to kind of, get back together again and go through this again and kind of hammer the point home and increase your Agile knowledge. And then, set up a time to meet again and go through the stuff some more. And maybe point to some stuff to read.
Did everyone see that? I sort of, so open-ended questions, and then a teaching stance in the middle game. Probably stay there quite a bit of time. Part of this is relationship building. Everyone get that? I'm also, so sometimes you can go in too hot and heavy and start coaching to your own outcome. But Dave is going in and trying to what? Gain empathy, build relationship, see what questions are there, maybe do a bit of teaching, close it, and then potentially look, not finish this conversation in one session, but look for, is there some follow-up sessions that we would have? I love that. Someone else give me another approach. Any other approaches out there?
I was kind of curious about the context a little bit more, like, okay, so this person's asking, person supports the initiative, asks to explain what Agile is, what it isn't, what the value impact proposition is. Are these questions they're asking for themselves, or are these the questions that they're asking on behalf of others? Like a little bit more surrounding the context, so I understand what it is that they're looking for, right?
This is, and you can ask that. That could be part of the introduction of the coaching session. Now, I can answer that for you, Ken, and it might inspire a follow-up, but this is for them. They're personally challenged, right? Let's just say they're honestly clueless, and they're just looking for information. But what I'm sensing with Ken's approach, everyone, is more so get the story behind the story. So Dave went in with training, but there may be, and that's not right or wrong, but there may be a story behind the story. Maybe I'm clueless. Oh, and maybe my boss is expecting me to lead the initiative, which is really putting pressure on me or whatever. So perhaps get what I'm going to call the backstory. Ken is sort of maybe digging a little bit into the backstory. Like, what's the why behind this? What can I really, what are you really concerned about? I'm putting words in his mouth, but I
No,
think that's
absolutely.
fair. That's
I
fair.
mean, it could be, it could be following up on Dave, because I agree with Dave, like, getting information from them about what it is that, they view as being agile. And could it be that they know more than they think they know? Could it be maybe there's some imposter syndrome going on? Maybe,
Absolutely.
they're
Absolutely.
feeling uncomfortable with this because it's a new conversation. It could be a new manager or whatever, stepping into that. There's so much context that can go into this. What is
Yep.
the root of this? And then based
Yep.
upon that, trying to open up some questions to help them not just solve the problem, and certainly go in with some teaching stance, but also ask, what is the root of this? Like, what
Yep.
is really driving this question, and how can I help you there too?
And maybe that's the entire coaching arc in this first case. Everyone with me? Is just
Mhm.
figure out the context. Again, I saw Chris, you had a hand up. Chris, you have something to offer? Anything?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I agree with what Dave said. To add to the middle, what do you call the middle game? Middle game. What I would do is, because I'm not going as an expert, I'm talking to experts. That's how I feel, because they are the ones who is executing the job. The biggest fear in every team is a change. Anything the word change comes, it's an issue with them. So what I would do is, tell me how you're doing things now and how we can improvise. We can take that route. So that way people are more comfortable to talk, because they are experts in the field of what they're doing right now.
Right.
And then
I mean, my read to that, Chris, is like building more empathy or walking in their shoes.
yes, and then once they put in the way they are doing things now, so you can get in and then use as a brainstorming session, and then at the end game you can come with what is agreed upon and how we can do things.
Absolutely.
So it's a mutual agreement. Yeah.
Yep. Now, everyone, when I say an arc, please, one mistake you'll make is usually a coaching relationship is not finished in one arc. So please don't go in and say, I have 15 minutes, Marla, and we're going to nail the, we're going to solve world hunger in 50 minutes in one masterful coaching session. Rarely is that the case. Usually it's a bouncing ball. Everyone with me? A coaching session, I may scratch the surface, then we have another direction. It may not go on forever, but don't try to solve everything in one, unless it's a very simple situation and you've already established good relationships and all of that. It's rarely a singular event. So don't be surprised if you have a bouncing ball effect of 2 or 3 or 4 conversations that are connected. That's perfectly normal. Let me do something wonderful feedback. Let's do another one just for the heck of it. Same situation, the arc, but a different scenario. So let me pick one. Let's see. Okay, we'll do this one. Just for the heck of it. You're the Scrum Master. Now I've promoted you, demoted you, aligned you, but you are all Scrum Masters and you're going to have a coaching conversation. And so of a team who's recently adopted Scrum, little context, one team member, the team lead, is really struggling to work within the dynamics of a cross-functional team. They're an architect, a team lead, they're used to building stuff on their own. So this sort of work well with others thing is really not resonating with them. Because they know everything, they are negative, belligerent in meetings, don't like to collaborate with others, and are increasingly disruptive. So they're the domain expert. They're a SME, if you ever heard subject matter expert. They have so it's a very inexperienced team, independent of the SME. So they have a lot of knowledge, and they're sort of keeping it to themselves. Another team member pulls you aside, literally begging you to do something because it's become intolerable. They're not getting the help from the SME. Everyone understand the context, a little bit of, you can read in between the lines and fill it in. Let's do another arc. So this coaching arc is Scrum Master to that team lead. Everyone with me? Oh, let me add this to the context. You've already talked to them 3 times about this problem and nothing has changed. This is the 4th coaching arc, everyone. About 4 weeks between first one to now. All right, doodle, paper. How are you going to approach it? What's your strategy?
Bring in something, outside of what's planned. Like, how do you define the value of that item or the value of what you're currently working on too? What are the people?
And you all did wonderfully. So think stances, think entry, think goals at the end. What does the middle game need to look like? What are your strategies? Mindset. How would you go in? Like, remember I said, drop your baggage? What would you want to think about before you even had the, right? Is there any baggage you need to drop? Don't know. So everyone can keep thinking. Anyone want to start? I just want to debrief ideas. They can be anywhere in the arc. I don't care. It could be end, it could be middle, it could be beginning. Tell me about your arc. So let's say Chris is going to go first. Chris, go for it.
This is how I start. When somebody approaches me that I need help, that means it's a cry for help. So first thing I said, what do you need exactly? Where do you need help with? Anything which is blocking you? Who is causing it? How can I facilitate? So to talk to the team member, bring team together, put them in a war room, let them discuss it out, how they can accomplish what they need from the other team, and then how they want to get it done.
So if I get it right, Chris, you're going to take a group-based approach to this, which is fine. So bring the team together to coach the team lead and do that with the entire team, leveraging those conversations with the team. That might be how you would approach it, yes?
Yes, because right. Scrum Master, I'm a servant leader. So basically, I'm taking the servant first, asking for, how can I serve you? And then lead by, facilitating.
I can buy that. That's an entry. I see 2 hands up. Dave Dave and then Larry. Dave, what do you got?
Just real quick. So what I've learned is that one-on-ones work really well. So if I'm an Agile coach versus a Scrum Master, I would pull in the Scrum Master and talk to the Scrum Master and find out how they are with one-on-ones. Try to get them to do a one-on-one with the disruptors. And then if they're having issues, offer, to join maybe a next meeting with the same person, but to try to, I guess, go about it that way and at least see how it goes, because people are obviously going to be less disruptive on a one-on-one because you don't have anybody to sort of laugh at your jokes or what have you, I guess.
Yep. My default inclination probably would be in this one. It's not right or wrong, everyone, would be one-on-one. And I would probably go. Now, I like what Dave said. Dave gave us the option of you can coach in multiple directions. Everyone with me? So I can coach the Scrum Master and see if they need help. And then maybe can I help them coach the team lead? Or can we do that together? Or everyone with me? So it wasn't one conversation. It was sort of a sensing conversation, and it might be a multifaceted coach. So not all coaching is linear. Right? I might, coach multiple factors. And back to what? Who was it? Gosh, I'm losing the name. But the gentleman that talked earlier, he may have left the group. You may actually do some lightweight coaching in the retro for the team in a group setting. So you might sort of be dancing around several coaching entry points. Someone else give me another reaction to this. Larry, you're next. Go ahead, and then Ken.
Hello again, folks. What I've found can work is to set things up so the team learns that the know-it-alls do know a lot, and that the know-it-alls learn that it doesn't matter that they're know-it-alls. That's not the same thing as being part of a team and leading. So I've put some notes here in the chat. I would hand the reins to the know-it-alls, step back and facilitate the know-it-alls' success, which has to be the team's success. And I'd give the team and the know-it-alls a measurable, relevant, valuable goal and hold them accountable for everybody achieving it. And I would disallow individual achievement. Some might call this a bit of a sort of, so to speak, tough love approach, but that's know-it-alls. Since they know everything, they don't learn from others so well, I find.
Cool. Thank you, Larry.
Yep.
Different strategy. Everyone notice when he was talking about know-it-alls and he was talking about a prescriptive approach. To me, that might be leaning into advisory stance. Everyone with me? Or leading stance. That was not a soft stance that Larry was talking about, everyone. That was not a soft, careful stance. That was a sort of a prescriptive stance. And maybe this situation requires that. So I'm alluding to the different stances or competencies that he, at least to me, he was stepping into. Ken, what do you got?
Yeah, I was thinking about having a kind of a crucial conversation with them about, what are the common values that we've got going on. And it depends upon the level of trust that I have with this person is going to play into this hugely. But there's going to be a little bit of a confrontation here with, well, what are the common values that we have? And this is the way that I see, this is what I see during the sessions, in terms of actions that I'm seeing you're taking, not what I'm making up about those actions, but specific actions that they're taking. And then following up with, this is the impact on me. And what do you think about that? And give them space, right? But you really have to build that trust in order to go in there and say, hey, I may have some difficult feedback. Are you willing to listen to that?
Everyone get that? Going back to core agreements, core team agreements, core baseline sort of behavioral agreements. The other thing I want to add to what Ken said, I'm not, sort of changing what he said, but you always want to, feedback rules say, don't ever talk about the person, talk about the behavior and the impact it has to the team. So don't personalize, it's not a good rule, just never personalize anything. So it's not about them, it's about their behavior, and it's about the impact that it has on the team. That's fair game. Who else was next? Let me go to Dave and then back to Larry. Dave, what do you got? This is Rich, everyone. You're doing wonderful. Go ahead, Dave.
All right, so I have a little saying that I use in situations like this, and I remind myself that only 5% of the world's population are truly psychopaths. Everybody else has a reason why they act the way they do. So I am curious, and I want to ask questions as to why he's behaving the way he's behaving. So this is the fourth time we've had the conversation. There's obviously something going on here, and maybe it's and I want to get into. I want to ask questions and have the coaching arc. Let's try to uncover the reason why they're acting that way. Maybe it's that he feels that he's afraid to share his knowledge with somebody else because he thinks it's going to be less valuable to the company if he does that. Or maybe he feels that the team is too junior to help him, so he can't share the load with other people or let other people learn how to do things because it'll be too. Or maybe he feels the team's not going to perform. We're gonna knock ourselves back to the forming stage of the Tuckwood model, right? And I can't do that. We're a high performing team. I can't afford to have that happen. So I would ask the question to try to find that and find out what that reason is why he's acting this way, and be curious about it, and not call him on the carpet, but have the curiosity to say, hey, look, man, come on.
Hey, did everyone notice? So Dave's a little frustrated, not really, but this is the fourth time, and he's still putting on patience. And he's still putting on curiosity, and he's peeling the onion. And I sort of, they're all good approaches. This is a very different strategy. Let's dig in a little bit. And Dave may actually have to deal with silence and really be very patient and let things come out, because it may take some time. But that's very different strategies. I want to come back to Larry. Larry, you had your hand up. Did you want to add something?
Thanks. Great. I think maybe a good segue. So I think your point about hard versus soft of my approach, I think is correct. But I wanted to say that I think there's a softness inside that, and I would say it's intentionally, and it's the patience, it's the letting. So in one sense, I'm hard in the sense that, all right, smart guy, you're now in charge.
Yep.
But it's soft in the sense of, now we'll watch it happen. I'm not gonna crack the whip because you apparently know how to crack a whip. So it's sort of all on you, but oh, you're part of a team. So now what do you think? Wow, what are you gonna do? That's a comment. Thank you.
Very cool. I want to stop everyone. So we did 2 scenarios. There's 4 in the deck, but we're gonna shut down in like 5 minutes. So I feel like you got the point, and I don't want to belabor it. I do want to put up this scenario because it's making a point. This is a team member. So when I say Agile coaching is for everyone, I envision a world where team members have these conversations with each other. So they're 360-degree conversation. It's not just the Scrum Master's job to have these chats, or it's not just I envision a world where people develop the skills and the capabilities in coaching conversations over time, over years, and have the ability to have these nuanced conversations, up, down, sideways, right beside each other. So I put this one here because to me, it's a team member to team member coaching conversation. Now, I don't see these that often, but I would really love to see these more often. Because I think all of it, again, a manager to manager, peer to peer. To me, some of the peer to peer scenarios are the richest scenarios. They're the toughest scenarios sometimes. So again, multi directions. But now I want to come back and just debrief. You did a wonderful job. You saw some arcs. This was like a view of I would like a world where everyone is an Agile coach. And I hope I enticed you to maybe do some more research or do some more studies. Like this is anyone go into a bar and you have a flight, like you have a flight of beers and it's a little sampler or a little sampler of bourbons, and all you're doing is trying to get a taste of something that you could follow up on. That was the intent of this. I wanted to give you a sampler for these notions, so that you could follow up on your own if you're, sort of intrigued by these skills of coaching skills. What else do I want to talk about? That's it. I want to thank you. And I hope you aspire to become more well-rounded. And I hope all of you look at yourselves as a coach sometimes and practice those skills. Any questions?
Hope we can see the deck. That's my only comment. Thank you.
I'll make sure Ken gets it, but then he's accountable for getting it to everyone else. So all I can do.
I don't know. Do you have it downloadable someplace or not? I suppose we can always do a Google share. Like
well, it's easy. It's easy for me to make it. We can figure that out, Ken. Any other question? One thing I just as an advertisement to everyone, not that this is free, but there's a way to do an assessment. So comparative agility is a tool that does a variety of assessments. And Mark Summers and I, he was a contributor to the book, we developed a Agile coaching personal improvement assessment that's available for free with that link on comparative agility. And what you can do is you can go and there's 55 questions. You take 55 questions and you get an assessment of where your strengths and weaknesses are according to the wheel, so that you can personally improve. And it's private data, it's your data. It's not shared with anyone. But I just wanted to make you aware of that. That's a a resource out there that you can all use. And that was it.
Can I ask a bonus question?
You can. It's going to cost you, Larry, but good.
Okay, good. And if this is just too far out of left field, skip it. Do you can you offer to us what definition, maybe canonical, that you would say is a commonly embraced definition of quality, commonly embraced by Agile definition of quality? And I think what I mean is not so much defining it, but defining its source. So looking at the project, the team, the organization, the market, the customer, where does the definition of quality come from? And again, if it's too far out in left field, we'll skip it. Thank you.
So it's kind of in left field. I'll take a real quick whack. I don't want to. So
Yep.
From my point of view, like products and projects and product owners should be establishing like the cost of products, and quality is a characteristic of that to me. So they should be defining it. But my default brain went to definition of done. Some of the best definitions of done I've seen have quality attributes in them, and they're very clear and they're very measurable, and the teams actually pay attention to them, and they deliver. You know, if they're mature or well behaved, and if the organization is well behaved, they deliver software according to those attributes. So, for example, years ago, I found that Salesforce they publicly shared their definition of done, and probably 30% of it had quality attributes, if that makes sense. Things like coverage analysis, Larry, defect rate, fix rates, things like that. UX sort of quality. It wasn't just code quality. There was usability quality attributes in it. And at the time, I thought that was excellent. And it wasn't just a published document. I mean, they rigorously release software to the best of their ability to meet their definition of done. So what I would say is, I don't think there's an industry-wide definition of quality. I think I would look at definitions of done in organizations and see if you're giving it due respect.
That was great. Thank you.
The other thing is, look at Lisa Crispin and Janet Gregory's work. I'm sure they talk about that a little bit in either the two books that they've talked about, that they've written on Agile quality and testing. Any other questions? We good, everyone?
There's some conversation back and forth in the chat regarding user experience and engaging in that in the teams. So
that's sort of what I can do if there's interest in that. I've written a couple blog posts that talk about how does user experience map to Agile Scrum teams, and it's not a direct fit. And then I think I actually, over time, I've added some comments to other people who talk about that. It's not a common topic, like there's not hundreds of articles written about it, but some people have done good work about how they've done it. So if that's of interest to the group, I could send Ken a few links to some blog posts about it.
That would be awesome, yeah.
It does fit. And I've personally done it at a company where we had a UX and a research group, but we had to run a lot of experiments to get the balance right, if that makes sense, between Scrum execution and some of the research things. It wasn't easy. So we had to get the balance right in the teams.
Yeah, I just recall, and I'm just playing in because there's so much chat in the chat right now.
So it's pretty easy for me. I'll include that in the email follow-up, Ken.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Hey, everyone. I want to honor your time. It was I just really appreciate you guys listening in and having me come in. I hope you not learned something, but I hope I've intrigued you with some things that you weren't thinking about, and you'll go off. And so continuous improvement and learning is something that's really important in our space. So hopefully I've inspired you to crack open something and to learn something new. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Bob. We really appreciate your time